Hello, that's right, it's time for another range test using these nRF24L01 radio modules, commonly used with Arduino for sending and receiving radio signals, plus two big-ass Yagi antennas, one at each end, and the aim of this game is to see how far away we can receive the radio signals from. So I'm doing this at the 250 kilobits per second signal rate, or data rate, which is the slowest that they go and is the most reliable for receiving signal at a distance. And I've done this before. You may have already seen a couple of other videos I've done about this. And at the end of my last video, I managed to get to 14 kilometers with almost no perceptible loss in signal. So that gave me great confidence that we could get to 20 kilometers and beyond. So I searched around for a place where I could go 30 kilometers, just in case 20 wasn't enough. And that's what I've been doing today. So I have the results there, and I thought before I show you what I was doing today, I'll just give you a little update on what I've changed on here. So this is a transmitter, obviously nothing much to look at there. This is the one that I stuck on the top of the hill, and this is the one that I carried with me. So let's just have a little quick look at what has changed on the transmitter. I had some comments in my last video saying it might be interesting to actually send some data in the packet, because last time I was sending, it says here, just sends a 12-byte packet continuously, and I wasn't actually changing any of the data that was in the packet. It just sent the same data over and over. So this time I thought we could do this. It's still 12 bytes, but now we're sending three numbers that are actually going to change, or well, the seconds number is going to change quite continuously and visibly, and we're just going to output this at the receiving end. So if we look at the loop for this program, this radio write line here, this was the only thing that was in there last time I did it, but now I'm every 1 second I'm incrementing the seconds, and if that goes over 60 then we increment minutes and set seconds to 0, and the same for minutes to hours. So that's the only change on the transmitter. On the receiving side, we now have, where is it? Packet is the same there, hours, minutes, seconds. And I'm outputting three lines of text. So there's the packets per second value that we had before. Then there's an average. So this packet per second is, the name is a bit strange there, but this is actually a moving average of the last 1 second of packets. It's actually every 100 milliseconds it takes a reading of how many packets were received in the last 100 milliseconds. Anyway, it's a moving average of the last 1 second. And then this average here is a moving average of the last 10 readings of this. So it's like a 10-second moving average. It's a little bit slower. I think somebody suggested that it would be good to have an average. I didn't want to have an average of the total running time. That would include a lot of zeros if you weren't pointing the antenna in the right direction. So this 10-second moving average I thought would be a good middle ground. And then on the third line of the display we just show the data.hours. So this is the data, this is the number directly from the packet that was received. So the receiving side is not doing anything with this hours, minutes, seconds numbers. It's just displaying it on the screen, and that's it. So if we just have a little look at that, you can see obviously we're getting lots of packets per second here because they're right next to each other. And the line at the bottom shows us that it's been 5 minutes 25 seconds since I turned the transmitter on. And if I reset the transmitter, we'll see those numbers drop down a bit, and then the time will go back to 0 for the last line. And if I reset the receiver, so it's on 15 seconds, 17, 18. Okay, so the time doesn't get set back to 0 there because that last line is just purely displaying data that was on the transmitter. Yeah, so it's not very interesting data, but at least it is some kind of a packet data that's being changed throughout the course of the transmission, so that we can see that we are actually getting some data. We're not just getting packets that don't mean anything. So thank you for the suggestion on that. That's the only change that I've made, though. Now, the more we play this game, the more driving it involves, and the harder it becomes to find a location that meets the requirements. Namely, you need to have as high an elevation as you can get, and it needs to be overlooking a long distance of plains or flat ground. no trees in the way. Needs to be an area that you have permission to use, ideally. You don't want to be just walking around on people's property without asking. It needs to be somewhere that you can get to by car. Well, it doesn't need to be, but I don't really feel like dragging all my stuff over kilometres of farmland up and down hills twice, because I've got to do this twice, right? I've got to go and pick it up again when I'm finished. So somewhere that you can get as close to as possible by car is what I was looking for. And another thing that you really ideally want to have is a road somewhere along the beam of the antenna, so that you can just drive down that road, and all the way as you drive down the road you are in the beam of the antenna, so that you can just stop at any point and test the signal without having to do lots of crisscross driving just to get a spot in front of the antenna beam. Anyway, so I eventually found this location here after much searching, and you can see I've put a marker there. That's where I actually ended up. But my first choice was this place here. This is a hilltop, and it has this thing on there which looks a bit like a big boulder or something. But as I was driving towards the hill and I looked up, I saw it looked a little bit more like a trig station, you know, one of those little wooden pyramid kind of things. Because it's like right on the top of the hill. If I do this, you can look around and see this is pretty much the highest point among this group of hills. Unfortunately, though, it turns out that this is a radio antenna of some kind, so I could not really use that location. Well, I didn't want to, and I'm sure they wouldn't have wanted me to either. So that's why I've ended up here. This is just over a kilometre away, and it's a little bit closer to the road. So this road here, I actually managed to drive my car up. I don't have a Jeep or anything, but fortunately, as far as farm roads go, this road was actually quite nice. My car is four-wheel drive, but it does not have a great deal of ground clearance, so I was a little bit worried, but it managed just fine. So that turned out to be a very nice spot, nice for all the reasons that I've just mentioned, and also, as I saw when I went up there to check it out the day before, on a nice, fine, sunny day, it was just goddamn beautiful, the whole area, just to be up there. Like, it's the world's best spot for a picnic, I'm telling you. I might have to take my mini quad over there sometime and fly. And the other thing, if I just turn the satellites off and we do this measure distance thing so that we can get a line from that point. So what I was saying about having a road that goes down the beam of the antenna, this road here, this hierarchy road, goes in a nice big long straight line here like that, and it's right along the section or the distance away from the transmission point that I'm interested. So from 20 kilometers to about 30 kilometers is just a nice big straight road where I can stop at any point and I'll be right along the beam of the antenna. So that's where I pointed my antenna. And just in case that wasn't far enough, there's another road here that goes, it's not quite in the same direction, but it's pretty close. So I picked a point along this road that was just on 30 kilometers because that was sort of the goal for this experiment. So it's just there, I think. So this is somewhere, where is it? About there, 30 kilometers, whatever. So anyway, that's where I plugged in my calculations to figure out where to point the antenna. So let's have a look at how it all turned out. I'm just heading up to the hill now, and as you can see, the weather is not really that great. Some of the other hills a little bit further down are actually under cloud. Oh, not anymore, but they were before. So anyway, that hill right in the centre of the frame there is the one where I was planning to use originally. And as I was driving up here, I saw a little thing there that looks like a trig station, so I thought I'll just go up and strap my antenna to the trig station. It's like a little wooden pyramid thing, and that'll be perfect. But as you may be able to tell when we zoom in 20 times with this video camera, it's not a trig station. Apparently that is an antenna of some kind for internet, and it has solar panels on the side of it, which is what made me think it was a trig station. It sort of looked a little bit similar just at a glance when you're not looking too carefully. So I won't be able to use that hill, which is a pity, but I will use, I think it's just here somewhere is where I'm planning to use. Just around the middle of the frame there's a sort of a roundy looking tree, few trees there. That's where I'm going to have to put it, but it's not actually too bad. Anyway, let's go up there and have a look. It's a little bit hazy looking over there, but it's not bad actually. It's better than I thought it would be. Okay, here we are. It's quite windy up here, but there's a bit of a lull in the wind, so I'll try and talk while it's not blowing so much. You can see the tablet down there on the ground is pointing in the direction of where the antenna has to go, and the camera is lined up pretty much in that same direction as well. Just wanted to give you a look at how much haze there is across the view. So basically we need to go pretty much all the way out to the horizon there, I think. I mean, we're basically going to about 1 kilometre or 2 away from the coast. So I think right about the centre of this frame at the moment is where it's going to end up. I mean, that's the 30 kilometre mark. So as the mount for my antenna this time, I'm going to use this tree here. Since it's quite windy, I don't want it to be a thin tree, which might move around a bit. This one right here looks pretty sturdy. So my tablet and my phone are giving me slightly different readings for compass direction, so I'm going to just go with the middle of the two of them. Okay, I have everything set up there now. It's pointing just a tiny bit downward and exactly in the direction that I wanted. Got my stuff stuck on there. I hope it's going to be okay. I can actually feel a few little drops of rain, which is not very exciting, but I'll just have to hurry up and do this, I think. So I just have a huge LiPo battery there and a 5-volt regulator step down to power it. I think it should be alright. Looks fine so far. Right, so you can see 5 minutes 45 seconds since I started it, and we're getting 545 packets or so at this point. So let's go for a drive. I thought while I was up here I would also use my 20 times zoom on this camera to take a look at whatever kind of antenna this is up here. I can't be bothered walking over there to look at it in person. What is that? Internet, they said that was for. Another reason why I don't really feel like walking over there right now is there's somebody over there firing a gun just before. Just here. Don't know what he was firing at. He seems to have stopped. And all these cows went over towards him, so maybe it was the farmer, but I thought he said he was going to be away today. Oh well. Anyway, even with the 20 times zoom, there's not really much to see. Can't really tell what kind of antenna that is. Anybody know? There he is. Here he is. I wonder if he's coming over here. Oh, he's going away. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm here at the 10 kilometre mark, approximately, and this almost wasn't worth doing because we know it can get to 14 kilometres pretty well, but we have 400 and, well, you can see it there, 480-ish packets, but get this, it's sitting horizontal. So if I tip it up the way it's supposed to be, and I'm not even pointing it up, like, that's the direction it, yeah, over that direction's where it should be. It's not quite pointing the right way even, but we get 540, oops, there you go, 545, no problem. This is 10 kilometres, so on we go. Okay, I don't think this is going to show up very well, but I'm just over 16.3 kilometres and I can still get 545 packets, but I have to point it just right now. I can't be as rough with it as before. Hopefully you can see that, 540 something. I can't see it too well myself in the video camera screen, but it looks like it says 543 there for a minute. Anyway, on we go. Let's try 20 kilometres next. Okay, I'm here at the 20.5 kilometre mark and not going very well. you can see from the bottom row of the screen that I did actually manage to get a few packets because the time is showing up. The most I could get was 17, and only for a very brief moment, and only if I hold it really precisely on one sliver of a little point there that I can get anything at all. So unfortunately I can't do it while I'm holding the camera. It has to be done really precisely. So it looks like 20 kilometers is beyond the range, but could also be just because of the way that the ground is moved here from where I was, because I was only 4 kilometers back. At 16 kilometers I was getting pretty much full signal. So I might go a little bit further up ahead and see if maybe it comes back again. Okay, I'm at the 25 kilometer mark and I'm getting absolutely nothing at all. And this time there are no excuses about having things in the way like trees or anything like that, because I'm looking exactly, where is it? It's really hard to find this on camera. The reflection on the screen is kind of not helping things much, but it's those hills there, and I think it's about, is it that tree in the middle there, right in the middle of the screen? I think it's that. But as you can see, there is no obstructions between that hill and me here, and there's a nice big patch of water, so there's no trees or buildings or anything in the way of me close at this point. So it looks like 25 kilometers, at least in these weather conditions. It's not going to work for this distance. That's a pity. I was really hoping it would go to 30. So I think what I might do is have some lunch, and then I'll go back and I'll see if I can figure out at what point we start to get some signal that is actually worth using. So maybe like 300 packets per second would be a pretty good number. Okay, I just stopped a little bit back from where I was, 24.3 kilometers from the starting point, and if I hold it just right, I can actually get up to about 200 packets per second, but by God, it's difficult to do it, especially when you're trying to hold the video camera. But hopefully we can see, there we go, 200. So I think maybe 25 kilometers was actually possible, but because I'm only, like I say, I'm only about 750 meters from where I was just before. So it could be just some strange way that the signal's bouncing makes it not, like, doesn't work at that location where I was by the river. Even here it's not that great, but still, if you persisted, you could get probably 200 packets per second consistently, like if you weren't just trying to hold it with your hand while you're filming something. But this is sort of encouraging actually, so I might go a bit further past 25k and see if I can find another spot where I can pick up signal further than 25k. Okay folks, I think this is where I'm going to have to call an end to today's experiment. I am at 28,700 meters plus 100 meters, because I didn't tell you that I actually forgot to set this until I'd driven down the road a little bit, so add 100 meters to this or so, so it's probably about 28,800 meters. And I think I'm beginning to figure out what's going on, because when I point this in just the right place and hold it at just the right position, I can get 530 packets, and hopefully you can see there it's over 400 at some points. And if I hold it, there we go, it just clicked over 500 for a moment, and it's a bit hard to do this while I'm there you go, 500. But the interesting thing is, if I step over here a little bit, and maybe you're thinking the gate has something to do with it, I don't know, maybe it does, but now I got nothing. Hopefully you can see that. 0. If I step over here a little bit, I notice I didn't change the direction that I'm pointing the antenna. Now I'm 500 packets. Well, 490, yeah, look at that, 517 I think I saw. And again, if I take a step couple of steps to the left, 0. So I think what's happening is it's just the circumstances of the way it's bouncing off the ground and things around it and buildings and trees and whatever, that at this distance the signal is only any good when those circumstances line up just perfectly to have the signal amplifying with itself instead of cancelling itself out or something like that. I don't know exactly how it works or what's going on, but it looks like if you're persistent, you could get 500 packets per second reliably at 28, what did we say, 28,000, yeah, almost 29 kilometers. So this kind of tempts me to go back to the 30 kilometer mark, because I just went there now and I couldn't get anything, but I could have been standing in a spot like this. See, that's 0. And step here, 530. Actually, let me go, since I'm here, I will go back to the 30 kilometer mark and try again and see if we can't get it to do at least 300 packets per second at 30 kilometers. Wouldn't that be nice just to finish off with? Okay, this is definitely going to be the last measurement I take, because I'm getting very good readings and I'm over 30 kilometers by quite a bit. So this is 31,283 meters, and I'm just going to put this down. Excuse the dogs barking. Hopefully we can see this. Okay, I'm just going to have to hold the camera here. It's quite awkward and it's probably very, very windy in the microphone of the camera, so sorry about that. But if I just hold this up like this, look, easy, and see if I can get it to do what it was doing just before. I had it stuck on 540 for quite a while, just holding it carefully, but it's a bit harder to do with one hand. There you go, that's 520. But whatever the circumstances are at this location, it's actually quite easy to get a solid signal. Look at that, it's above 500 for quite a while, 530. The lower frequency average is at 520 there, 521. And I'm just holding it with one hand, and my hand's sort of wobbling a bit. But even so, very, very solid, good signal. So it can be done, but you just have to be lucky. I think that's the way it works. So yeah, 30 kilometers is possible. I was kind of hoping it wasn't, actually, because that would have brought this investigation to a close. But God, can I even find a place to do this more than 30 kilometers? Or have we already ascertained that to be practical, I think about 15 to 16 kilometers is probably a reasonable maximum to expect if you wanted to actually use it for doing something. So I don't know. Anyway, that's how it worked at that range. So just looking at the distance for that last location using Google Maps, which will give us a bit more accurate reading than what we saw on my cell phone. So starting from the antenna point there and going all the way out to that location of the last little clip of video that I showed you, it is 31.34 kilometers. Not too bad, and that was receiving, if you could hold it steady, about 500 packets fairly reliably per second. That's not to say, of course, that it's really a good idea to do that, or you should rely on it, because even a little bit of bad weather, I think, would probably throw things off quite a bit. And as I showed you in one of the earlier clips, there's a good chance that if you had to, cross the road over here, you'd get nothing. Cross the road over there, you get nothing, and so on. So it's just a lucky spot, I think, that I found there. So as to where to go from here, as I said at the beginning of the video, it's getting harder and harder to find places to do this. And I think we've sort of proven the point, or one of the points of this test is how far is it reasonably usable to. And to answer that question, I'd say around about 16 kilometers. Just from what I saw today in my rough guesstimate, I'd say if you wanted to actually use this kind of a link to do something with, instead of just playing around doing experiments like I'm doing, about 16 kilometers I think you could expect to set up a static connection between two of these antennas and have it working with a good solid connection. Any more than that, and if you're lucky it might work, if you're unlucky it won't. That seems to be the general diagnosis, or what do you call it, outcome. So will I do another one of these tests going any further? Probably not, because of what I just said. I mean, we know that the practical usage is about that point, and there's not really much point testing it any further. But it could be just for fun, I guess, might be worth doing. But if I'm going to do another test, I'd want to do it over water, so we don't have the possibility of bumps of earth and trees and buildings and things getting in the way. So then the search for a place to do it gets a bit more difficult. Maybe somewhere like this I was looking at, actually. If you could put the transmitter there and then you could drive. There's a road that goes most of the way along here. So the antenna, or the beam of the antenna, would be all across water, and you could just drive along here, and this is sort of a, let me see how far that is. Yeah, so that's 74 kilometers. And I was thinking maybe like about 50 would be a bit more reasonable. So a 50 kilometer challenge could perhaps be done there. But there's one other thing that we need to take into consideration. So we're starting to bump up against this problem where the curvature of the Earth means that the beam of the antenna is not even going to be visible at these distances anyway, unless we get a pretty good bit of elevation to transmit from. And there's some examples shown here. There's a pretty easy formula that can work out how high you need to be to see over the curvature of the Earth at certain distances. So this is what I was doing today. Roughly 36 kilometers, you need 100 meters of height. That's not too bad. If we wanted to go 50 kilometers, we would need, so it's 50 kilometers divided by 3.57, and then you square that, so I'll just times 14, so it needs to be, say, about 200 meters high. That's pretty reasonable still. I think that could still be managed here in this sort of area of New Zealand without me having to drive too far. Not saying I'm going to do it, but I mean, could still be done. But you may have noticed in this formula there, the last step was a square. So the elevation that's required goes up with the square of the distance that you're trying to transmit to. So it starts to get rather difficult rather quickly the further you go. So for that reason, I'm probably not going to do any more tests, not in the near future anyway. But if I do, I'll probably do it here. Anyway, that's enough for now. So anyway, thanks for watching.